Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today I want to be talking about Campaign 3 as it's been a little while. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, I want to talk about the best fights they've had so far in Campaign 3, and I'm only going to talk about 3 of them, because that'll add a little bit of leeway for me to add some or change them around if I feel the need, because we're only at level 7, so they're obviously going to have way more fights, and we're only on episode 40, so this will be up to that point. If you're watching this in the future. And also, spoilers ahead, because, obviously, spoilers ahead. I feel like it's necessary for Campaign 3 stuff to say spoilers. So, there's your last warning. Moving on to the list.
Possibly shake. Nope, not with a natural 3.
Yeah.
So as you leap in the air, at the impact, you can see kind of her glance over her shoulder, and as you toss the rope up and it attempts to wrap around, the back of her tail begins to retract. You see the stinger trying to pull in, but the rope catches into its barbs and is affixed to it.
When I land down on the drill and go, so sad about this, and I drop the end into the machinery.
Like a tire to grind.
Suddenly, the rope begins to be pulled by the internal gears and mechanisms rapidly, and you watch as she, kind of not really noticing and caring, looks back towards the rest before, and you watch her being yanked back towards you.
Yeah.
Number 3 for my favorite fights in Campaign 3 is the fight against the Shade Mother and the rest of her Shade children while they were in the mines below Drushar. I really enjoy this fight. I think this is a interesting one because they didn't go in with the intention of being able or even, it being possible to kill the Shade Mother. They didn't know she was truly down there. They went down there to grab Lady Emoth. They weren't going down to kill anybody specifically. They were going down to capture someone, and that's always an interesting setup for a fight, as most of the time when a fight gets started, it's typically to kill or to defend. So to go in somewhere to be able to grab them is very fun to me. And they had the Green Seekers, and I believe Dorian was still there at this time. So it was just overall a really fun time as we got to see a total of 10 people fighting against a ton of Shade creatures and the Shade Mother and Lady Emoth. And it was just fun overall as there was a bunch of different elevations involved in the fight, as the Shade Mother was on a floating disc and could potentially crawl on the wall if she needed to, because she showed that's how she kind of started on the wall and then fell onto this floating platform. And they used a little crystal bead thing to capture Lady Emoth and used ingenuity to get the hell out of there. First of all, having to push Lady Emoth out as if she's a ball was kind of cool, and Orym taking the rope and throwing it into that auger mine thing and catching the Shade Mother up was also really fun. So to me, this is a fun one because it wasn't let's go in and kill the creature. It was let's go in, grab what we need to, and get the hell out. And they performed really well. I don't believe anyone went down, and I don't believe anyone was like truly close to death. Maybe there was somebody who was, but this was just an overall fun one, and they got to execute a plan. It was kind of the earliest showings that this group could work together as, well, a collective, and it was really good. And again, I love the ingenuity of not just slashing at something, but instead tying them up and throwing one end of the rope into a machine. I thought that was really cool, and to me, a highlight of early Campaign 3.
You glance and see it looks to be an old woman who's carrying a bag of fruit. You guys like,
I love it.
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll see whose lane she's in. 6. Those guys there are gonna try and maneuver.
I don't know who we're cheering
They'll
for.
fail their dexterity check in the vehicle and wham! Slam right into her. She goes, ah! Flies to the audience, and they lose 2 ground. On that one.
And at number 2, I have the Death Wish Run. I fucking loved this. This was amazing. So it was a combination of Theater of the Mind and minis on a board. It wasn't a traditional minis on the board, as it was more so just for positioning, and then the rest of it was taken away by Theater of the Mind. There was nothing overly dramatic about the minis or anything. There was no big set piece that he made for this. It was a flat grid, and the rest was all to be seen within our imagination, and I really enjoy that. It was a nice blend, as I truly believe Theater of the Mind is really difficult to pull off successfully, and Matt does that excellently as well, but having these minis to help represent where things go is something that he does a lot for his Theater of the Mind segments. So he did this perfectly. We went through different parts of Bassaris. We went through the catacombs beneath it, a desert-esque area, and then back through Bassaris, which was really cool to me. And I really enjoyed everything that happened with it. The way that they used their magic for affecting both the enemies and the crawlers they were on. The way that FCG was able to be a wheel and an attacker. The idea that Dusk and Aurum were elsewhere until later on, so they could come in and help them as they got there as well. The outside interference from other characters and other enemies was really cool to me. And I just really enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was kind of tense because they didn't have to just lose by dying. They could lose by losing the race. But very early on, they got rid of their enemies, but then still had to face other obstacles, which still made it entertaining as opposed to them just sort of wrapping it up once they won the race, which was also an excellent idea. So to me, this was ultimately a really fun Theater of the Mind and a really fun just combat session in general, and a nice combat or skill challenge, if you will, which is always fun.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
It's done.
Well, this is not a crit, so you take 2 failed death saves. As she's falling back in the air from that second strike, she immediately takes the second blade and jams it up through her back, which pierces out of the sternum. And while holding her still aloft, kind of a reverse Sephiroth situation, Laudna held in the air, just looks over at you. It's your turn.
And for my favorite fight in Campaign 3 as of Episode 40 is Odahan Thule versus the Bells Hells. This is the first and so far only fight in the entire series that has made me at all fearful for the campaign ending. I know that sounds weird, but as a DM, when you get in a snowball situation like that, you feel some things, and this definitely did that for me, as it looked very bad. It was going very poorly for the entire group, and that's kind of what makes it exciting. Looking back on it now, it is a fantastic fight, if a little bit frustrating, but that's part of an emotion that makes it feel good, because it doesn't mean that every fight they're going to have is easy. If every fight was, we're going to win, there would be no tension, there'd be no issues, there'd be no reason to play. If you were going to win no matter what and not lose any characters, there would be no purpose in playing. And because of this fight, it really established that Odahan and potentially everybody that she's involved with is a dangerous threat. And it's really fun. So I'm going to break down this combat a little bit more. First of all, they start off with Odahan kind of getting the drop on them after wasting a bit of their resources trying to get Trashy out of the Seat of Disdain. And then as they leave, they try to separate in 2 different groups. And then Odahan intercepts one of them, blows up the crawler they're on, and then from there, it is a downward spiral into potential TPK. From there, Imogen casts a big storm wall to try to make more space, but half of the group doesn't necessarily listen to this, and they move into attack, while the other group try to run, and then their tank gets blitzed immediately, and they need to now figure something out, or they're all going to start dying. And at the end of the fight, after mistakes were made, coordination wasn't on point, we lose not 1, not 2, but 3 characters, and it's heart-wrenching, because you go into the next one not knowing who will be there by the end of the episode. Could it be all of them? Could it be only 4 of them? You don't know. And that's what made it so fun for me to watch and to enjoy, because that fear of not knowing who was going to be in the next episode was real. And it was really entertaining for me afterwards. Going back and looking at it, I truly believe if they had handled the planning a bit better, or if they'd come together and done one solid plan, they may have been able to do something. But there's been tons of arguments stating that they probably would have just been better off to just scatter and run. But the argument after that becomes, would they have all died, or would one person have died, or would one person have become leverage? We don't know. But this fight was a lot of fun to watch. It was super tense. We lost 3 people, and afterwards, we did lose somebody. And it made a small little mini arc to go get Laudna back, which to me was exciting. So this created a bunch of emotions, created a mini arc, and has set up a lot of future events to come, I'm sure. And it's just a great fight. It's a great thing to have. It is a great thing to look back upon as a defining moment in this campaign, and I truly love this fight. I think it's a lot of fun to go back and watch. It's tense, it's amazing, and heart-wrenching, like I said. Overall, the best fight in my opinion thus far in Campaign 3. And there you have it, my favorite fights so far as of episode 40 in Campaign 3. Really enjoy all these fights. I've gone back to watch the Death Wish run once or twice now, and same with the Odahan fight. And I think back very fondly on the Shade Mother fight. So these are just the ones as of right now. I assume with more, time to simmer on other fights or, fights to come in the future, this list will inevitably change. But I've been missing the bells, so I wanted to talk about them today. And as we're going into the second part of the Mighty 9 reunion, I'm excited for that as well. So I'll probably do another one of these favorite fights things, but for Campaign 2. And maybe a Ukatoa fight will be featured in that. We don't know yet. So yeah, with that being said, this was the video. See you guys Friday. Peace.